are you when you are not lonely? I heard that song lyric one cold morning when I was walking home from the gym. Earphones in, mind elsewhere, on autopilot. And then it hit me. You know that feeling when something is speaking directly to you, when it cuts right through the noise, as if it's calling you out? Well, that was this. Who are you when you are not lonely? So today, I want to ask you that question. Not who are you when you're surrounded by people, not who are you when you are busy, distracted, or part of something, but who are you when there is no audience? Because I think that question matters a lot more than we realize. So many of us join groups, teams, communities, and even relationships, not because we know who we are, but because we're just trying not to be alone. Belonging. Belonging is deeply human. We are wired for connection, for community, for village, from our friendships to our families, workplaces to networks. Belonging helps us grow, survive, and make sense of this world. So when there is a disconnect, our instinct is simple. Find people, find a group, find somewhere to fit. But there is something we often forget with that. If you don't know who you are, even the right community can feel wrong. And I'm sure many of us here today have felt that before. For a long time, I felt like there was something wrong, because I often felt like I didn't quite fit in when I was younger. I grew up in East London on a council estate, a place that some people used to call rough and dangerous, but I never saw it that way. I am the proud daughter of Nigerian immigrants who came to this country with not much to their name, but they have worked so hard to give us a fantastic life. I've been 6 foot tall since the age of 10. That's the height I am right now. So as you can imagine, I stood out in every room, every space, and even every school photo. I was in the back row every year without fail. So apparently, I didn't quite fit the stereotype of how a girl like me is supposed to look, act, or sound. And many people made that very, very clear. I was bullied, verbally and physically, by people who didn't understand me or didn't even try to. They didn't like the way I talked, the color of my skin, the texture of my hair, my name. Even the music that I listened to was wrong. Pretty much everything about me. I'd laugh it off and pretend that it didn't bother me, but it did. I found myself in communities that didn't really care that much for me. Some by choice, like some friendships at school, and some by force, like a sports club I was told I had to join. But despite it all, still, I rose. I played basketball for England. I carried the Olympic torch. I did well in school academically. I was visible, yes. I was in groups, yes. But I wasn't always well understood. So, like many people, I searched for belonging by adapting parts of myself, by editing myself, by learning how to fit into other people's expectations, by masking, by mirroring. From the outside, that looked like confidence. But on the inside, I felt disconnected, even in groups. And eventually, I learned something very important. There's a difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is the absence of connection, and solitude is the presence of yourself. Being alone isn't necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it can be an invitation. An invitation to ask yourself, what do I actually value? What have I been abandoning to try to fit in? And who am I when no one else is watching? That's when things really started to shift for me. I stopped seeing myself as someone that didn't belong and started seeing myself as someone becoming the person I was always meant to be. There's a song lyric that I gravitated towards during that period of my teenage years when feeling like I didn't belong was painful, and I was learning how to stay steadfast in loving the person I was. And it goes like this. And really, I think I like who I am becoming. Learning how to sit with myself, learning how to love the person that I was and the person that I was becoming completely changed the way that I carried myself everywhere I went, even if I was in a group or not. We often talk about the lone wolf like it's a flaw, like it's selfish, like if you're alone, it means that there's something wrong with you, as if independence is something that needs to be fixed. The lone wolf isn't someone that necessarily rejects community. The lone wolf can be someone that's just taking the time to learn who they are. Because before you can find belonging with others, you need to find belonging within yourself. And that kind of self-awareness, that self-knowledge, can change everything. Once you know who you are, you stop using groups to hide. You stop joining communities just to feel less alone. You stop shrinking and performing just to be accepted. And instead, you show up whole. And when people who know themselves come together, the community becomes stronger. Not because everyone is the same, but because everyone is grounded. The strongest villagers don't necessarily have to be the loudest. They're the ones who know who they are and they bring it fully to the group. And they can see who other people are too and allow them to bring it fully to the group. This is true for individuals, but it's also true for organizations. A team that hasn't bothered to ask themselves the question, who are we really, will always be performative. They will manage their image, protect their reputation, and avoid asking the harder questions. But the teams that I have found the most compelling, the most effective, have done some version of this work. They know who they are. They know what they stand for. And that makes every decision stronger. So the idea at the heart of this talk is that true belonging does not start with the group. It starts with knowing who you are. The lone wolf and the wolf pack, they're not opposites. They're stages. One is about self-understanding, and the other is about shared life. And you don't go through it just once. You move between them, depending on what season you are in, depending on what you need, and depending on who you are becoming. I've stepped back from communities when I've felt like they were not the right fit for me, or I wasn't the right fit for them. And I've chosen to be on my own more than once, knowing that it was the right thing to do. And here is something that I have noticed. Most of us are in between. We haven't fully sat into the lone wolf phase yet. We haven't quite given ourselves permission to fully sit with who we are without the noise of other people's expectations. And we're not fully in the wolf pack either. We're in groups, yes, but we're still performing in them. We're still managing how we are seen. We are still editing ourselves down. So I want to ask you a question. Think about the communities that you are in, your friendships, families, clubs, teams, and ask yourself, are you showing up whole? Or are you showing up as a version of yourself that you think that they need? Because there is a difference. And usually we can feel that. Belonging to a community isn't about doing more. It's about knowing who you are, what you bring, and trusting that that is simply enough for the right community. And in any group, we don't all play the same roles. We don't all lead. We don't all build. Some of us hold, some of us listen, and all of that matters. But we can't show up honestly in any of those ways if we don't know who we are. Because belonging isn't something that we have to earn by fitting in. Belonging is something that we can offer once we stop abandoning ourselves. And this is a question that you don't just answer once. It's a question you'll keep coming back to. Every time you're in a new role, a new team, a new season of your life. The lone wolf and the wolf pack, they're not final destinations. There's a rhythm between them. So today, I'll leave you with this. Who are you when you are not lonely?